Anyway, is Borderlands spying on you? There's a pretty massive controversy, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to start this video off just to give you the quick ADHD TLDR version really quickly, okay? No, you don't have to worry about being spied on, okay? There's been a lot of information that's been going around, overwhelmingly negative recent reviews. You've probably seen, headlines like Borderlands is spying, or sorry, Take-Two is spying on those Borderlands players. Now, Borderlands 2 just recently got discounted 100% off, completely free, okay? You can pick it up right now before the 8th of June. Now, this is overwhelmingly negative in terms of reviews, and that's kind of a sign sometimes that maybe there's some review bombing, okay? Maybe there's some controversy, maybe there's something that people are mad about. Because generally speaking, Borderlands 2 is a pretty loved game. Like, you're looking at a positive review, like I think it's like 93% of the user reviews are actually pretty positive for this game. Now, Borderlands 2 is one of those games where I didn't know that it had to be completely free, because I'm pretty sure like most people that I know who have a actual pulse in their body pretty much own a copy of Borderlands 2. So when a game gets review bombed, there's probably something that has happened that has caused people to be a little bit mad, right? And one of those things I thought was probably this statement that Randy made like a couple weeks ago, where one user's like, Randy, this game better not be $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't gonna pay $80. And Randy's like, hey, it's not my call, which is true. He's not Take-Two CEO. He's not the Take-Two boss. Take-Two boss decides how much pound of flesh gets taken. But then he says, like, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach. And I found a way to make it happen. You know, Randy, sometimes you gotta love the guy, but this is like a perfect example of probably you should try shutting the fuck up. Because people didn't take that really kindly, okay? Now, to be real, Randy's one of my favorite characters, and it would be harmful for me personally to my mental health to not laugh at one of my favorite Randy controversies. Where back in 2018, he had like a USB drive where people were alleging that he possibly had sensitive information from Gearbox, which, you know, if you're giving information to Gearbox or anything of these companies, you probably don't want to have that floating around out there. And of course, the dreaded CP possibly. Now, obviously, Randy said there was nothing illegal on that USB drive, and that there was actually apparently like pornography, but that was for the purposes of studying an act performed by a female actress. He claimed to be similar to a magic trick. No, Your Honor, I swear, I only had this video file to see how they were doing that trick in the video. I swear, that's why I had it. So the lawsuit was actually dropped, and get it completely right, Pitchford was exonerated, okay? I just like mentioning it because I always find it to be the funniest fucking like actual controversy. Because luckily nothing got harmed out of it, except, well, Randy's self-respect. But to go to Steam, for instance, right, and read exactly what the controversy was, Take-Two and 2K Games have updated all their games, turning this into, really all their other games into literal spyware. Now, this is pretty important for me because I play other Take-Two stuff. Like, I played GT Online on that computer ever since Rockstar implemented BattleEye, which is a kernel-level anti-cheat that does not work underneath Linux, nor does it work underneath a virtual machine that is running underneath Linux. So you typically need like an actual Windows 11 system with games running. That computer exists solely for me to play games like Grand Theft Auto Online, Rainbow Six Siege, Destiny 2, games that require that kernel-level anti-cheat. So again, to go down over here, what this user says is mods are a bannable offense, display of cheats exploits is bannable, forced arbitration, you can be banned for using a VPN, and you cannot access game content on a virtual PC. So because of the alleged anti-cheats, you cannot access, you can't run it underneath a virtual machine because of the kernel level stuff. So they go over with all of the collected information, and it sounds very scathing, okay? 11,197 people found this review pretty helpful. So I wanted to go down here and just sort of see what's going on and what they're actually doing. Is Borderlands as a game actually spying on you? So first things first, I wanted to see if there was any actual game update to Borderlands 2, and from my understanding and research, there has not been an actual code change to Borderlands for at least like 2 years. Now I was also wondering, okay, if people are alleging that Borderlands is spying on you because of an anti-cheat, is there actually an anti-cheat underneath Borderlands? Now, in my research, and you don't have to do a whole lot of it, ladies and gentlemen, but again, one of the websites I use is Are We Anti-Cheat Yet? As like a Linux gamer. You know, you typically want to know if your game has kernel anti-cheat because sometimes some anti-cheats work in Linux, some don't, so you kind of like pick your buy based on what's on this list. Now, obviously, if I type in the words Borderlands, none of the Borderlands games, and this is a pretty exhaustive list, by the way, but, you know, just to clarify it again, probably doesn't have catch-alls, but Borderlands are popular titles, so I suspect if they had anti-cheat, they'd be in here. So Borderlands 1 doesn't have anti-cheat, Borderlands 2 doesn't have anti-cheat, the pre-sequel doesn't have anti-cheat, and Borderlands 3 doesn't have anti-cheat. So none of these actual games have any form of anti-cheat software that typically would be the software that would be collecting the information on you. So that alone right now is one of the pieces of misinformation that I wanted to tackle. By the software standard, none of these games are actually tracking you. I've ran Borderlands in a virtual machine. I've seen what it was doing, and none of it is out of the order for a game that literally shipped in 2012. So the controversy, a lot of it comes from a video by a user known as Hellfire. Now this guy's got 21,000 subs, he's kind of growing, and some of his most popular videos ever really on this subject have been in like literally the last couple months, right? Like literally he was talking about this Take-Two spies on Borderlands players, then the backlash, and then of course a video with 500,000 views a month ago where everyone is deleting those Borderlands games. So I wanted to look a little bit into this video and see what exactly was the claims being made. So inside his video, he showcases legal reasons to process personal data. And then of course, to go down further, what's more important is obviously when he starts digging into the actual current terms of service. Now, thankfully, Hellfire provided the new Take-Two terms of service and the privacy policy. So obviously, we're going to go right there and just see exactly what the fuck is going on. So one of the things that Take-Two says is when they're collecting personal information, this is the type of info that they collect. So one of them is identifier. So your name, your username, your gamer tag. I remember when we used to call them gamer tags. Postal and email address. Okay. Phone number. All right. That's a little personal. Unique IDs. Mobile device IDs, platform IDs, your gaming service ID, advertising IDs, and your IP address. But that seems a little bit too personal. But let's go down, okay? It goes age and gender as your protected characteristics, your commercial information, so purchase and usage history, including gameplay information, your billing information, your payment information, and shipping address. So again, a lot of these things, and I'll go down with it, you provide to these guys anyways. Every time you make an account at Take-Two or like Rockstar Games Launcher, or really anything under their banner, and this goes for Steam, this goes for Epic Games, this goes for PlayStation, this goes for Xbox, Nintendo, every game, every online service, you're always usually providing your name, username, gamer tag, and email address. Sometimes your phone number, you know, when you want to get that two-factor authentication set up, and of course, your various device IDs. But then again, your age and gender, you most likely provide that. You know, a game will ask you, hey, how old are you? What are you, male, female, prefer not to say? And then, of course, your purchase usage history. So anytime you buy something off of, like, for example, Steam, if you're, or for Take-Two, let's say you buy like a Rockstar game or the Rockstar Game Launcher, that's part of the purchase history. So payment information, again, you provide that anytime you buy a game on their service, and your shipping address. So for instance, I know they have my shipping address because I ended up buying Borderlands 3 for the PlayStation 5, just because it has like legit 4-player split screen, which I think is pretty awesome. This required me to give them my shipping address, and you can imagine that's information I gave. So now when they get to internet electronic activity, so web, app browsing, and gameplay information about your online interaction with these services or our advertising, and details about the games and platforms you use, and other information related to installed applications. So this seems pretty like nefarious. because somebody could be like, whoa, are they just spying on my computer in general? But again, this is all related to you using Take-Two services. So if you're accessing their websites, if you're accessing their games, it's kind of related to your access to those specific services. So let's say that you accept cookies on their website, right? That's going to be you providing information back and forth between Take-Two's website and your systems. So again, device and usage data, so your device type, software and hardware details, language settings, browser type and version, operating system, and information about how users use and interact with services. So people are like, wow, this is like them spying on your system. Again, this is, I'm gonna level with you, this is something we call browser fingerprinting, most likely. Now, if any of that information listed sounded really spooky to you, just to show you like what a browser fingerprint is, if you go to this website, miunique.org, and you just ask it to see your fingerprint, right? It will basically run a few tests on your web browser, and it can determine a lot of information. For instance, right on my computer, it detected what my operating system was, okay? In fact, what my time zone is, what my language that I request is in. It can request my user agent. A lot of these things that I've given it, especially when I enable things like cookies and all this stuff, you can get a lot of information out of somebody's web browser just through capturing their fingerprint. So that is most likely what their privacy policy refers to anytime you use their website. So profile inferences, so inferences made from your information and web activity to create a personalized profile. So literally them gathering information on you and using it to build a profile, similar to how like Google does it whenever you like use their services, and then you're wondering, wow, I looked for butt plugs a week ago. Why am I getting ads for like 10, 20 different types of butt plugs? It's because they've personalized the information that you're most likely to interact with because of your behavior. Then, of course, audiovisual information, so account photos, images, avatars, basically anything you upload as like a user profile picture or anything like user-generated, that is information that they have to list as, you know, them collecting. Then, of course, when it gets to sensitive information like your precise location information, if, for instance, you use like a mobile application or you allow them in an app to give, you know, your location to them, right? If they ask you for it. And then, of course, you've got your account credentials, so username and password. Again, that's relegated primarily to their services. So these are not super private pieces of information. And when you go to how they collect this information, literally the first bullet point is you provide directly to us. Like when you set up an account, you sign up for marketing, or you contact us. When you play the games and you provide information through them. So yeah, this is, again, not something super shocking. And I'm not making this video to like defend Take-Two or Activision. Like I'm not on the payroll. Again, I'm only doing this because I don't really understand the spying allegation. Because if this terms of service scares you, and honestly, I'll agree and say that a lot of TOSs are very broad. Like maybe there are TOSs that can go above and beyond and grab more information than they're supposed to. But comparing this to like Activision, for instance, right? Even Activision will say, personal information provided by you. So here they just straight up say early on provided by you, which is probably what Take-Two should have said anyways. But they say they collect your contact information, your name, date of birth, email address, telephone number, your gender, date of birth, country, payment information. And then they'll tell you when you visit their website, the information they collect is your IP address, your hardware software information, your browser type. So like that fingerprint that I told you, or anytime you run a game, it'll collect information and like confirm, all right, this guy's playing on Windows, that guy's playing on Mac, that guy might be playing on Linux. Oh, this is where their IP address is located, yada, yada, yada. So literally, if you go to PlayStation as well, okay, information that we collect or receive. So registration on their network, when they ask you things like emails, physical addresses, name, phone numbers, for instance, when you give them a username, password, or security questions, or your credit card or payment information, a lot of that stuff is collected. So no, Take-Two is not doing something that is above and beyond spying. If you're going to consider Take-Two to be spying on you, then you might as well consider PlayStation, Nintendo, Microsoft, Activision, really any of the biggest software players in the game to be spying on you. Now, when I go back to Hellfire's video, one of the things that they did bring up was these bullet points, right? So you will not use, promote, or make available any bug, glitch, exploit, cheat, mod menu, hack, script, bot, unauthorized mod, or any other method that interacts with the service resulting in the breach of this agreement. This includes any such methods that to collect information on user data, exploit system vulnerabilities, circumvent content moderation. So when you're dealing with hackers that, typically will use mod menus to grab information from other players. Now, if you're a GTA Online player, you know this pretty well. For a long time, playing a game like GTA Online meant that, if you connected to the Rockstar services, these guys would build registries on, your IP addresses, your usernames, and using that information, they would do nefarious things. I, for instance, would not be able to play GTA Online without a VPN at the time. And this is before Rockstar implemented IP relaying and a whole bunch of other technologies to actually mask users a little bit. Back in the day, when I connected to Grand Theft Auto Online, I had my IP grabbed, and I literally got booted off streams. Like, I literally had to deal with the DDoSer, and they got my information, collected from one of these mod menus for Grand Theft Auto Online. So I imagine this is something similar, as an overarching clause for a lot of their online games. So you will not use exploits or illegal or unauthorized means to interfere with or adversely impact any other user's ability to use the services intended to gain unfair gameplay advantage or to gain access to virtual items or other contents which require... Basically, you're not fucking around with their microtransactions, okay? You will pay for the microtransaction, and you will like it. But the other thing is, obviously, if you're cheating in an online game, this is going to be something where they're absolutely, they don't want you to do it, all right? And a lot of times, these game developers and publishers will even go after some cheaters with actual legal cases as well, too. Unfortunately, there's only so far you can go into. Like, sometimes these cheaters end up in, like, places like Russia, where, like, you just cannot... You cannot, chase them down once they get past a certain point. Now, inside Hellfire's video, he kind of talks about kernel anti-cheats, and I want to play this section really quickly.
That they're going to try banning people from making glitch videos when BL4 comes out. Trust me, I know, it won't stop people, but on top of everything, that's a priority for them, I guess. As Stereo Lotus mentioned to me, everything being explained here lines up with kernel anti-cheat. Kernel-level anti-cheat systems are designed to detect and prevent cheating in online games by monitoring...
Now, the thing about it is that would be all fine and dandy if you can prove that Borderlands uses a kernel anti-cheat, which it does not. Now, I've made videos in the past with things like Valorant, for instance, where I did talk about how scary it is to have a piece of software running on your system that has that elevated privileged access. And that is true still to this day. I don't trust when a lot of game companies, especially game companies, right? Like, I'm trying to play your video game, bro. I'm not trying to have a piece of software sitting and running at a super high level on my system. And now some people are okay with it because they really love playing multiplayer games and they're okay with having a piece of software on their system that can grab or possibly be used in a nefarious purpose. And sometimes these anti-cheats do get used in a very nefarious purpose. You never really have to worry about being, I would say, hacked by a lot of these big companies, because realistically, if they wanted your personal information, just running their games is enough. But sometimes a actual hacker can take a perfectly legitimate piece of anti-cheat software and use it to affect people. So for instance, back when I was talking about Genshin Impact, their anti-cheat, MyProt2, you could actually dig out the driver. You didn't even need the game or anything. You could just use that driver in this situation and abuse it. For instance, in this case, a ransomware actor would kill the antivirus processors and services for mass deploying ransomware. So security teams should be noting that MyProt2, just that driver, could be integrated into malware. So the reason why they would use it is because that malware would be code signed. It would be approved by, the actual vendor. It would be approved by Microsoft, and it would slip through as a good guy. And by using such a high-level kernel anti-cheat solution, a lot of these actual hackers, these ransomware people, would use it to kill the anti-cheat, or not anti-cheat, the antivirus software, and basically run their malware into people's systems. So again, it's an actual hacker abusing this piece of software for nefarious purposes. It has nothing to do with Genshin Impact, nothing to do with the actual developers. They were not doing this to commit any illegal actions. Unfortunately, their software, because of how deep and invasive it can go, was used by nefarious people because they just found a way into people's system. And this is just how this kind of stuff tends to work. Now, I will say, if you're somebody that is worried about cheating, I will say that the amount of anti-cheat solutions that exist, I feel, harm the actual user a lot more. For instance, just looking up cheats, one of the first websites that I went to was right here. I'm not going to exactly advertise what it is, but they showcase how their cheat solutions work. So the way that most people cheat in video games is you have like your gaming computer like this, and then usually you'll have like a laptop on the side or another computer, and between those systems, they'll communicate via a DMA card. So the DMA card goes into the PCI slot, like the graphics card slot for your computer. And what it allows this second computer to do is read the memory of the first computer. And when it can read the memory of the first computer, it can look at the game that it wants to, help you cheat on, and basically look through parts of the memory that you shouldn't be looking through in order to figure out where other players are at, or, and use all that information to create things like wall hacks, for instance, right? And again, using, devices like a fuser and a KM box, you can then run things like aimbots or triggers or anything of that nature and be a douchebag. And these kind of people typically get to operate in a pretty safe spot. Even according to this website, the top 2 anti-cheat solutions, which would be Faceit and Vanguard, are basically running with big blue check marks. And if these 2 are compromised, Ricochet is easily compromised, and BattlEye and Easy Anti-Cheat don't even fucking stand a chance in comparison, because these 2 are already way more invasive than these 3. But again, all of this would be important if Borderlands even had an anti-cheat to begin with, which it doesn't. So even looking into the videos that were released as a follow-up from Hellfire, he was saying that some of the data they collect are passwords, addresses, phone numbers, IP addresses, community mods, and these sound really spooky until, again, you read that terms of service like we just did on this video together, and you find out it really isn't all that nefarious. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of things you can complain about with modern video games, but this is the kind of stuff that literally has been talked about for years. Now, 7 years ago, this post on r/gaming, Take-Two a spyware apocalypse. They straight up said Take-Two is updating its EULA, and it contains the same shit that we were talking about. For instance, the information we collect may include personal information, like your first, last name, email address, phone numbers, photos, mailing address, geolocation, and payment information. So their games are basically spyware. Games aren't Facebook. They shouldn't be allowed to spy on us. Take-Two tried to fuck us over with Open 4, but they received massive backlash and had to reverse it. Now they are already receiving massive amounts of negative reviews on their games, and we need to show them that games aren't a social platform. Well, I would say most modern games are now turning into that, and they cannot sell our information. Now, look, I'm not here to basically, wag my finger and say this is okay, but I am here to basically cull some of the actual misinformation. No, Borderlands is not running an anti-cheat solution. Borderlands is not collecting this information in a malicious manner. Borderlands is doing what 99.9% of online services are doing on a daily basis. If you're worried about this end user license agreement, you may as well stop playing any video game that connects to an online service or requires you, right? I wager if you play any modern game and, when you fire them up, you'll see the EULA and you have to scroll all the way down, 80 pages of this shit, and then you have to hit I agree. I guarantee you every single one of them has the same shit that Borderlands has had for years now at this point. So this isn't necessarily new. A lot of times these updates happen because in parts of the world where they operate, new laws get passed and they have to update their license agreements or their definitions to sort of modernize it with the legal jargon that they have to contend with in the world. So yeah, that's really all it is. I know it's a pretty long video that I made, but the general answer here, like I said in the beginning, and I wanted to give the TLDR, you're not being spied on. But if this information concerns you, you can always just not play the game, right? And again, this might be, some people saying this is them prepping for GTA 6 when they eventually drop that on PC. And this is not just a PC-centric thing. Again, it's also on your gaming consoles as well too. They can collect a whole lot of information from you just connecting to their services from a PS5, an Xbox Series X or S, or a Switch, or a fucking mobile phone, or whatever. But yeah, this is just par for the course for online services, and it's just legal shit to that they have to be saying to be compliant in a lot of places they operate, right? I think arguably the biggest thing in this is the class action arbitration like lawsuit. So inside the Take-Two terms of service, they have this section 17 where it has a mandatory arbitration clause and a waiver of class action and jury trial rights. So for all users in the United States and any other territory other than Australia, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, and the territories of the European Economic Area. And I always think that's a really shitty thing that companies do, right? Like, it's like, hey, here's this one tool you have to fight against us in a court. Yeah, we're going to take that away from you. And now you have to challenge us individually, which means you going up against a big corporation is just never going to be in your favor. Look, this is not okay. Like, these EULAs and how broad they can be are not okay. But this is also not hyper malicious in the sense that they're running malware to collect all this information off you and just effectively run and sell it around. This is, just the agreement you have when you share your personal information to play anything online with, right? Like when you're sending your address, when you're sending them your credit card for buying a video game, this is stuff they have to mention for legal reasons because, yes, you are at this point sharing your personal information, and sometimes it can be to buy a video game or have something shipped to your house or, interact with other players on their network. That's just stuff that you agree with. And if you don't want to deal with it, then the best thing you can do is not engage with that company. Don't buy from them. Don't play their video games. And that's pretty much the best way you can stay completely insulated from this. Now, to not defend... Now, I want to just add on to it, without defending any of these companies, if these situations or EULAs do bother you, it is advisable that you stay away. One of the things that I did want to talk about, and I showed you just a minute ago, was the class action arbitration. Again, when you give your address or personal information, like when it comes to finances, like credit cards or bank, when you give your credit card numbers and your security codes, that should go through a payment processor and be pretty encrypted. Your passwords alone should be pretty encrypted. I don't think anyone is storing anything plain text anymore, and if they are, wow, that is a pretty serious scandal. But when it comes to your personal information, right, the biggest thing you have to worry about is if a data breach happens. And one thing that I don't like seeing is when you see the class action arbitration. That means like, hey, if your information gets leaked from us because of shitty cybersecurity practices, which any company is, capable of doing, does that take away your right to get any form of restitution from these people? Because whenever your information does get leaked or identity theft happens, it's really always the individual going through hell with tax services, not tax services, but the Equifax, the credit reporting services. It's usually somebody going through their own personal hell, and the company really just gives you the I'm sorry and moves on with their life. That, I think, is the biggest problem with this updated agreement, is that class action arbitration. But as far as privacy policy stuff goes, it's pretty much standard boilerplate that we've seen for any other company. And again, if it disturbs you, you always have the option of playing games on the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, without live connections, or really anything before the terms of EULA or mandatory connections to services were required. And I'm not saying that to be a douchebag. I'm just saying, like, there are still so many old games that you can tap into that you can play till the end of your natural lifespan that don't have you interacting with any of these services if you truly do not feel that comfortable. But chances are, if you're watching this video, and even for the user that made this video, the big video about Borderlands, you were using, from what I understand, a Steam account to even play that game anyways, which means that you gave up the same information that you would have given up to Take-Two, just with another big mega conglomerate company. And maybe you feel more comfortable with Valve, maybe you feel less comfortable. It's a matter of personal opinion. But again, this, to me, didn't seem like a big thing. It would be a huge deal if they introduced a kernel-level anti-cheat and it was basically spying on all your information and your various other applications through that actual, anti-cheat. That would be a huge problem to me, but that would be a huge story if you could prove it to be true. After everything that I've explained, then you have the decision that you can make on your own to partake in it or not. Remember, there's so many games out there, tons of games out there. You don't have to just play from the one shady company out there. You can go to the other shady company, or you can just play from a respectful indie developer if that's your choice. But what Borderlands is doing is nothing different than what most games have been doing, most online games have been doing since the days of like early Xbox 360. Hell, even the original Xbox or the PlayStation 2. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like it if you dislike it, I am out.